Now that's significant. The Market Research Podcast.
Hello, thanks for joining us on this latest episode of Now That's Significant, a market research podcast. This is your host, Andrea Mitlag, Client Engagement Manager at Infotools. Today I'm joined by Simon Banks, an international keynote speaker and author, podcaster on creativity, innovation, and design, and a recovering professional artist. He has delivered over 400,000.
That's a lot.
1,400 events across the globe. Simon's big why is to use his artist ingenuity and learnings from his 20 years corporate career to build a more creative world, enabling people and business to thrive. Now, thanks for joining us on the show, Simon.
Yeah, thank you. Very lovely to be here. Thanks for having us along.
Great. Now, what's the most significant thing you wanted to share with us today?
I'd love to talk about curiosity because I'd say it's very easy to lose our capacity for and appreciation of curiosity. Now, look, I've seen this play out because I would say 95% of the people I work with will say, but Simon, I'm not creative. I don't have creative bone in my body. And they'll say, everyone's creative, but not me. And now creativity and curiosity, like sort of twins, okay? They belong together. And that creativity and curiosity that drives the world forward and helps us, solve some of the big challenges the world has and also lead a more interesting life.
Tell me a little bit about the difference between curiosity and creativity.
Well, curiosity, and I was looked this up in the dictionary today just to make sure my definition was correct. And it's interest leading to inquiry. Now, look, the way I look at it though is imagine you're a tourist and you walk around with your eyes wide open. So you're inquisitive, you're interested in what's going on in the world around you. And when I explain creativity is the ability to bring forth something that that wasn't there before. And that comes in so many different forms. And I also say it in an easy way to make people comfortable. It's that ability to connect the dots in different ways. But, for me, they're both very much connected. But I've often heard, the curiosity comes first. And when we're curious, our creativity to make something from that, comes afterwards.
So can we be creative at any time, at any age? Are we born to be creative and curious, or is this something that we learn?
Great question. It's a little bit of both, but I've never met a uncreative or uncurious 4-year-old, having had a few of my own. They said, 4-year-olds ask about 250 questions a day. And also, if you ever seen a 4-year-old who's uncreative, who doesn't like to play and create and make things and experiment and try. So what we find, though, is it sort of gets drummed out of us. Okay, we start to develop a very negative view about what our creativity is. And generally what I've found from, I say many thousands of anecdotal conversations, there's a moment at school where a teacher will say something like, but that car doesn't look like a car. You should go and try geography instead. Now, in that moment, because you've been given no lesson, but your teacher has said to you, I want you to draw this with photorealism, with no experience, no training. And then if you don't get it in photorealism, I'm going to say you're not creative, which is what a load of BS that is. So, but we all have creative intelligence in multiple ways.
So what you're saying is that we hear that comment and we hear someone saying you're not creative, and therefore we stop being creative and we stop being curious about things.
Yeah, well, you can still be curious and not make anything creative, or not, be creative, I guess. But for me, they're one and the same. And I always think, our imagination and this is good for radio, doing a little triangle. our imagination and curiosity and creativity all sort of work in as one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you talked about travelers' eyes. Tell me a little bit about that. Are you saying we become tourists in our own lives? Is that how you would describe it?
Yeah, I think it's a great way to describe it. And think around one of those great overseas trips you've been on. So just picture one of those ideas in your head. And if you're listening, you're listening now, just go back to one of those moments you think, oh, that was such an awesome, awesome, awesome experience. So I want you to take yourself back there right now. Now, from the moment you get to the airport or however you got to where you're going, you realize, you get out and you think things are different. Like the air smells different and it even feels different. Now you're in your transport heading your way to your accommodation, let's say, and you're looking out the windows, you're taking in everything that you see. And you get to your accommodation, you check in, you decide we're going to go for a walk. So as you start to walk, your eyes are wide open. You're noticing different cobblestone patterns on the street. You're looking at the tablecloths at a cafe. They're different at home. Oh, the chairs are even a little bit different. You're hearing different dialects. You're seeing different fashion. You're looking in all these shop windows. And for some reason, you get home and you realize you couldn't stop taking photos of windows and doors. And that's just something we're not quite sure why, but all travelers do it. And you keep on walking. And you're hearing different sounds, you're seeing different sights, you're noticing the layout of buildings and the structures of different things. And then you think, okay, I'm a little bit hungry, so I'm going to sit down and have a meal. And then you sit down, you muster up your 2 words of broken English, which is dos cerveza por favor or something, which gets you your 2 beers or the local equivalent. Australians, we think that's as good as it gets with speaking a foreign language. But off we run. But even when the beers come out, they're in this really long, thin glass, which is so different to the glass you might have at home. So when we travel, we notice everything. We make the effort to open our eyes, and generally it's put down our phone and look at the world around us. But think about it. Think about the last time you maybe got out of your car or got off the bus when you go into work, or you got out of the car and you go to the supermarket. What do? We just walk straight into the supermarket, straight to work with our head down, often looking at something digital, just ignoring all the inspiration that's around us. So that's that idea of looking at your world like a tourist, whether it's through a work mode or a weekend mode, or even your own neighborhood. When we open our eyes, there is so much more to see, and it doesn't take any effort. It just needs to look up instead of down.
Yeah, I like how you put our curiosity around in the world that we live in. And it's really interesting how we forget to look up and look and discover new things and new colors and flowers and things like that. And even sounds and even smells.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now I'm curious to know how this applies to the market research industry and our understanding of consumers and consumer behavior.
Well, as we know, there's two types of research. There's the qualitative and the quantitative, okay? So when it's quantitative research, we get all these, numbers in front of us and graphs and data, okay? So that's sitting there in front of us. But how we interpret that is open to, our curiosity. So we might often go to the usual places first and we go, okay, that's those 3 or 4 things. But if we start to ask some bigger questions, well, what's maybe the messages under this data? Is there anything here that we could be missing? Is there anything that we might need to think more about? So there's loads of great questioning around that quantitative data, but I always like, when we're doing qualitative data, when we're out and about and being curious, and human behavior is a funny thing, isn't it? Like people will say, oh yeah, I know I need to exercise, 5 times a week. So the data will tell us, that's what people need to do, but the behavior might tell us that, the qualitative research might tell us, well, people say they're going to do it. They go to the gym, but then they don't do anything. They sit on their phone the whole time. So it's that ability to watch people, be curious about what people say, what they do, the emotions they have. Like the words might come out of their mouth saying, well, what did you think of that in a focus group? That was good. Okay. But the curiosity will look at them. They go, you look as bored as I've ever seen anybody in my life. Okay. So you might then think, well, if we're going to change the way we think around this data or change the way we get these responses, we might be curious about the way we might frame our questions. So look, on a level of 1 to 10, how excited do you feel about this rather than what did you think? Oh yeah, it's good. It's good. If you had to choose one of these 5 options, which one would you choose? Oh, tell me a little bit more about that. Oh, I see you're excited when we spoke about that. What does that mean? So I think our curiosity and our ability to keep asking why and diving down, and they call it root cause analysis or any of those things, or using a why questioning technique. I think it's at the heart of great sort of research as well.
Yeah, it's the ability to dig deeper, isn't it?
Yeah.
And get to the bottom of things. Going back to something that you said before, which is we don't know any kid who isn't curious. And we talked about the fact that we lose our curiosity or we lose our creativity because we're still curious, but we've been told that something is not as good as it should be or it could be. How does someone become more creative when they go on their day-to-day and they're busy with work and they're looking at their phones and we don't have time to kind of be creative?
Well, it depends what your version of creative is. Like, if you think about it, most of us are creative problem solving all day. Okay, and generally our creativity is sitting there and we're just labeling it as something else. So if you think about it, we're creative. Most of us are creative problem solving all day. Each and every day we have a new set of challenges and we need to reimagine those challenges to help to solve those challenges. It might be, and I heard someone speak about it the other day, little C creativity versus big C creativity. The big C creativity might be when you block out a huge amount of time to spend time on something in a creative way. And the little C might be that little piece that you do each and every day. But I heard Kate Blanchett speak, and she said, look, we have to be prepared to do something that we know we're going to suck at the first time we do it, which is why most people will not try something which might be considered in that creative space. So we've got this idea of, well, I might, and often the arts comes up as, oh, that's the be all and end all. But think about it, we often won't engage in that space because I can't dance like Fred Astaire, or I can't paint like Salvador Dali, or I can't sing like Adele. Now, behind all of that is thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of practicing their creativity and that craft. So we need to be able to step into that zone of going, well, I'm going to try something which I know I'm not going to be good at, like learning a new language or, taking on a new form of exercise or a new sport, and all of a sudden you put yourself out of your comfort zone and be open to trying and doing new things. So that's a really good way to start develop some more creativity. And also it's like a muscle. Like someone says, I'm not fit. You don't go, I'm not fit. I could never be fit. I never was fit. That's just not me for fitness. You just go, well, do some exercise. So your creativity is a muscle, and there are multiple ways to work it out, not just in the arts where we mostly go to, but we all have multiple creative intelligences. And there's whatever, I guess, find that thing which for you helps you get into that flow. And, that's where you can practice and start to go for it.
And where does imagination come in?
Well, imagination is that ability to not imagine what is, but imagine what is not. So that might be better solutions for your clients from all of your data. Imagine that ability to picture something in your mind and think, oh, I don't have it already, but what might it look like if it was there? I think it's that ability to ask, big questions. And I wonder what would happen if. Or I wonder what would happen if we join these two pieces of information together. Or what if we tried this? What might that look like? So you see those curious questions helped you to imagine what's possible, not what currently is, but what is not. And I was reading a great book, Dan Rome's Back of a Napkin, which is how we use sort of visual storytelling to move our imagination, engage our imagination. He says it's that ability to picture something in your mind which isn't currently there.
Yeah. There was something else that I wanted to ask you about curiosity in different brands or different services that we know. What happens when a brand or a company establishes a culture of curiosity? Where do we see it?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I'm saying that about lots of good questions here. Okay. So for me, it's almost like if curiosity is part of your culture, imagine it's like the ability to say, well, look, if a client says, we have a challenge, do you have the answer? If you have a creative confidence or, curiosity confidence, you can say, look, we don't know the answer, but we know with our curiosity, we're going to be able to find it out. Because we're curious people, we know we're about to find the solution for you. And I might be saying, look, or we need a solution. You say, well, look, we can be curious about what the answer is, and we can come back to with 3 or 4 possibilities, rather than that. I guess that where you're stuck in that seat where people say, oh, we need an answer, and you're sitting there thinking, oh, okay, all right, I need something. And I'm the expert here. So it's that ability for me to say, well, let's be curious about what the answer could be. Let's not go in with our solution already pegged in mind. Let's go a little bit wider in our thinking and just keep asking why and challenging the way that we do things and just see what's possible on the other end. Because we always go to the easy solutions first. That's the way we're hardwired, because you don't want to be brainstorming how to get dressed each and every morning. You just want to, wake up, get dressed, done. That's done and dusted. However, that curiosity is great. What might I do today to do something different? How might we solve this challenge? How might we engage different people in our industry to be part of solving this for us? So for me, it's the confidence to ask why, and also know that you're supported by your team as well when you do that, rather than always saying, give me an answer now.
And I guess when a brand engages in curiosity and it also goes that bit further, it will connect with a customer in a more robust way, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, my sense is it would, without knowing your customer. But for me, I always like to, and again, I did something like a brand redesign recently. Mm-hmm. And I went with 3 or 4 people, and the person who I worked with in the end, her questions at the beginning were fantastic. And I realized a lot of people say, "I'll give me 2 or 3 questions," and okay, you do something creative and come back with the atypical look, and pretty much all 3 of them. Then the 4th person, she asked a bunch of questions. Yeah, we spent an hour together just talking. She was really curious about what really made me tick and all of those different things. And therefore, the solution she came back with, she said, well, look, based on that, here's some ideas I've got. I'm really curious to get your feedback on it. And all of a sudden, you're in this great loop of sharing ideas and openness and, I guess that sort of constant feedback and iterating, which was, for me, her curiosity played a massive role in, getting the right solution.
Has it connected with you?
Yeah, and it connected with me. And I thought, well, if you're curious enough to keep asking those questions, I know you really care about the outcome as well.
And do you also think that she dug deeper into what you wanted to communicate, I guess, therefore giving you better solutions?
100%. Yeah, 100%. And she asked questions that I'd probably never asked myself. Which made me think differently. And I think that piece with talking around curiosity, what's the questions you want to be asking your clients to make them think differently as well? Do you want to go in and challenge them in a positive way, take them to places they wouldn't normally go? So they, after your interaction with them, they're going, oh, wow, I wouldn't have thought about it that way. So for me, it's that ability to, dive that little bit deeper and say, well, we've looked at it from a few different angles, and look, here's some of the things that we've found as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In the last 20 years that you've been working with corporates, you would have witnessed a lot of technological change and innovation. Has this had any impact on curiosity, do you think?
I'd say yes and no. And look, we spoke about this recently on our podcast, is technology killing our creativity? And look, it's how you use it, isn't it? You can get, the internet is your window to the world. You can literally track down anything, anywhere, any sort of niche interest you have. You can find your tribe out there on the internet. So I think it's such an amazing resource. However, it can be our first place we might go for our inspiration. So it can be like our default. And it also, because it's got so much interesting stuff, we can spend a lot of time looking at the wrong stuff. As in, you might think, I often find myself, this is more reflection about my own brain, but you'll open something, then you open something else, and 20 minutes later you go, where was I? Well, I'm not even sure what I'm meant to be doing. So I think it's like anything, it's a tool which can be a great for our curiosity, because we can find out things we wouldn't have thought before, and great for our research. But also putting your phone down, putting technology down, and just embracing with the world, around you, and connecting in that sort of person-to-person way as well, also brings its own benefits. And what I also find with technology, we often think, okay, I need to come up with some ideas. I'm going to go to my laptop, which is a very linear way of looking at the world through literally a very small screen. the world's full of wonder. If we just wander around with our traveler's eyes for a little bit, we will notice so many different things. And, chatted to many people and some top creatives, and the big theme which has come through from that, they all do their creative thinking offline to start with. Yeah, so they won't go to their computer. Long answer to a short question, so it depends.
Yeah, no, that's a really good answer, because it made me think something that I read about Zen philosophy, and they talk about doing one thing at a time, slowly and deliberately, completing a task, devoting time to let the mind be free. And it made me think, when you talked about looking on your phone and going to one place and then the next and then the next, and then you forget about where you were, it feels to me that it almost kills the creativity, doesn't it? Because you're kind of doing everything but nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're busy being busy. And there's Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who's I guess, considered the father of flow, or this idea of flow. And when he talks around flow, when you find yourself in that space where everything just sort of connects, and he said it's something which you do have an interest in, but it's challenging, but not too challenging. So you find yourself in that, it's challenging enough to engage you, but not so hard that you think, oh, I've had enough of this, but also there's a sort of a deep interest in it as well. When you find yourself in that flow and you get distracted, the science tells us it takes 21 to 24 minutes to get back in that flow. So
wow.
Yeah, so and I don't want to pretend I'm an expert here at not turning off my phone, but if you can find that space where, and this is nothing new, but you block out that space for that curious time and that more creative time, that ability to be a little bit more zen about it. Also, you can go that little bit deeper. And we do go that little bit deeper and turn off all the incoming noise, we start to go into our subconscious, where we're being curious during the day. A lot of stuff will go sit there. And then once we start to, decompress, if that's the right word, all of those ideas start to come out, which is why we get our great ideas in the shower or going for a run. Generally, we're having a lack of digital stimulation. So all of a sudden the ideas can sort of float out into our frontal cortex, where they start to make a bit more sense and meaning.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Now, let's do a quick recap of what we talked about. We talked about curiosity and how we can harness its benefits when we use our traveler's eyes, always looking at the world as if it was the first time we were seeing it, as if we're tourists in our own lives. We were reminded how 95% of the people that you engage with think that they actually are not creative, but they can actually utilize the power of curiosity, which we know is true, and we know everybody is curious and born curious. We discussed how curiosity may or may not be something that we're born with, but we can develop it, or rather, we are all born with it, but we lose it as we get older. As we go to school, and then our teachers don't give us praise for what we're doing, even if the car looks like a banana. Right? We talked about the need for us to slow down, to put our phones away, to look up, to decompress, I guess, or not be focused on what I call electronics or technology, and not looking at our screens, and maybe do one thing at a time to get into that flow. And we talk about how brands and companies can gain a lot by letting or creating a culture of creativity. Now, is there anything else that we talked about? Anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, just one thing. We talk around creativity, and the idea is that we're all creative, but what we lack is the confidence. We lack the confidence because our creative souls are a precious little thing, isn't it? So we might say something, and we've been in an organization where ideas are shut down all too easily, or we have a lot of no's or a lot of buts, so it's very, very easy without even thinking about it, for a culture to develop where ideas that we look for the faults in what everyone's saying before we even go to what we look for, what's great about it. So I always think around, you want to develop that creative confidence. It's that creativity to go, well, look, that confidence to go, look, I don't know the solution yet, But I know using my creativity, my curiosity, I'm going to be able to work through this and solve it. So that's that creative confidence. And that's that bit where you think, I know my stuff. I know maybe I'm paid to know everything, but look, it's impossible to know everything. But with my curious organization, my curious team, I know we can rise to this challenge. Yeah, and some things will never turn out as we imagine, but that's creativity and curiosity, in working together. So for me, it's not just around, embracing my creativity. It's around developing the confidence to use my creativity as well, which is that very sort of human condition. And if you want to develop that culture, provide that safe space where people can share ideas. And big picture is no one's going to laugh at them and go, ha ha, where did that come from? And Australians, we're so good at this. We love to take, sort of laugh at each other in a fun way, but it's a really big creativity and curiosity killer, rather than sort of the other way around.
Yeah, and I suppose that confidence and creativity is also being confident to show being creative or curious or ask questions, no matter what the answer is and no matter what other people say, right?
Yeah, it's better to ask I used to be, a lot of the time I thought, oh, that's a dumb question, I'm not going to ask it. But as you get further into your career and more confident in yourself, you think, no, I don't know what your 10-letter acronym means. I am going to ask. I'm not going to sit there and nod and go, oh yeah, I get it. So I ask hundreds of questions now, and you find the answers you want by just being confident and saying, well, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm going to ask. I'd love to ask the great question. I'll have to ask these questions up front, then sort of be regretting it later. So that comes down to that curiosity. It's that confidence in, curiosity is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. From what we heard today in this podcast, there's nothing wrong with it.
No, not at all. And curiosity didn't kill the cat, made it super cat.
Yes.
So and we all need a bit of super cat in our life.
Yes, a little bit of fun as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I live next to a primary school, and I can often hear the kids laughing and having a great time, and how they haven't lost that time to be curious and to have fun and to be creative and play with leaves and trees and branches and anything.
Yeah, and we're not sort of sending that school saying, okay, I want you to go out and explore the garden and then come back and do a PowerPoint presentation on it. Text only. We do this stuff as adults, so we've learned to do this all by ourselves. So that ability to, look at the world with wonder, look what's behind that corner, walk down a different street, look up, try a new cafe, listen to some new music, all of those things feeds that curiosity piece of your brain. And all of a sudden you go, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. All of a sudden connections start to pop. And so what happens outside of work, being curious, is directly relatable to what happens inside of work, because you'll take your well-exercised, curious brain into work with a big smile on your face going, hey, I got plenty of stuff to share.
Yeah, that's a really good tip, isn't it? Right. Okay. Well, I think we've covered everything. Thank you so much, Simon, for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It's been really nice to have you. And for you listeners out there, we really appreciate if you subscribe to the podcast, share this with others, or left a review. So thank you for listening to Now That's Significant. And thank you, Simon, for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome. Great to come and join the show.
Okay. See ya.